London. Today I am honoured to be joined by an internationally acclaimed singer-songwriter who is here to talk to us about his 6th studio album. Please welcome Jack Savoretti. I have done that so many times.
I took one there for the team, didn't I?
I feel like I held you there.
Yeah, you did.
It was meant to be. It's the embrace. And do you know what annoys? He's wearing a cap and you can't see his luscious locks now.
Oh, not now. Later.
Oh, a little peek just there. Jack, before we get started, if you guys want to get in touch and ask Jack a question, we'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us at BuildSeriesLDN or leave a comment below this video if you're watching live on Facebook. Jack, welcome to Build. How are we?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really good, really good. This is kind of the end of the day for me. We've been sort of running around London doing a lot of promo for the new album, so this is the perfect way to end the day.
You say the best will last though, mate.
Exactly.
Best interviewer, best audience. Yes, guys! Come on, I love that. I have to start by saying, when I listen to your new album, Sing Strangers, okay, I find myself trying to clutch a bottle of red wine and trying to find a date. One of which I can only find, and it's the bottle of red wine, unfortunately. But it is amazing. You must be so proud.
Yeah, I am. I'm really proud. It's been an emotional ride making this record. You know, a year and a half ago, I sat my band, my producer, Ken Blackwood, my label, my management down over a bottle of red wine and a pizza, and I said, guys, I want to make a really romantic, theatrical album in a basement of a church in Rome. Who's with me? And that could have easily been met with skepticism and doubt and fear. But luckily enough, I say luckily enough, it's not luck. I've surrounded myself with people that really understand why I make music and what the whole point of it is. And for me, it's all about feeling. It's not about painting by numbers or trying to fit a criteria. It's about trying to make people feel something. And I have to feel that before I can make others feel it too. So this was the way I felt like I had to do it. And they gave me the green light, and they all believed and came along on this crazy journey.
Well, I definitely felt something, and it's still early days, but you must be so happy with the reception so far.
It's insane. I mean, charts is never, I don't usually say the word chart, let alone think about it. We've never gotten into this for that, and I know that sounds like a bit of a sort of cliche and a fake humility. I don't mean it for fake humility, I mean it simply that I've always associated charts with following a criteria. Not that I've looked down on it, but I've always sort of felt like it was more of a trap, more of a burden, like to sort of fit into what is in the charts. So the fact that an album like this, that was made purely out of passion, feeling, taking a chance, and experiencing something that none of us had experienced, the fact that that has made its way into the charts, I think that's a really good sign, not just for me, but for the music industry in general. And I hope that it's a really good thing for up-and-coming musicians or people that are trying to start out making music, that if you go out there and just play and play and play and play to people, they will start following you. They will get you to the top of the charts. They will get you to Wembley Arena. They'll get you to places that you could only dream of.
Talk about the top of the charts just then. By the end of the week, it could be and probably will be the #1. So that's a round of applause.
Please tell all your friends about it. It could happen.
It's also been described as the feel-good album of the spring. Were you going for that?
I wanted it to feel, and romance is a word I use a lot because, you know, I hear a lot of love songs on the radio, but I don't think any of them are that romantic. And the example I use to describe that is Valentine's Day for me is probably the most unromantic day of the year.
Same. It's just like I want a date.
Because I'm married too, so that's our problem. But I think romance has been misconceived. I find, you know, I've seen romance in the birth of a child. I've seen romance in death. There's romance in a park bench. And I really wanted to remind people of that. I spent most of my 20s, and I spent a lot of money probably, trying to numb what I was feeling in my 20s. And then I had children. And whatever you do, they remind you how to feel. You get this continuous, daily, overpowering sense of emotions. Sad, happy, painful, pleasurable. And it reminded me how amazing the power of feeling is, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. And that's what I want people to experience when they get this album. I mean, that's a lot to experience in an album, but I hope it just reminds people, you know, if there's that song that makes you cry, don't change it. Stop. Have that moment. Let it out, and then move on. Because when you numb it, it stays, it lingers, and I don't think that's very good.
Well, we are lucky enough to have a clip of the track What More Can I Do? We're going to take a look right now.
Cool.
but there's no sound.
It's a really good song. Just so you know.
Cheers.
All these foolish things you do when you want me to leave, and I fall to my knees and I'm begging you, please. What more can I do? No one ever sees this side of you. Baby, it's not right, but it's still true. All the foolish things you do, I'll never stop without you.
What more can I do? I can see the romance in the way it's filmed as well.
Yeah, 100. I mean, Rome. I mean, the name is in the word. Rome is a very romantic city.
And that's where you went to record the album, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where when I came up with this idea about trying to tap into this, because I was listening to a lot of songs, and I moved to the countryside, the English countryside.
I can tell by the gilet he was wearing earlier.
Yeah, you should have seen the tweed. I've left the tweed in the background. But my children are growing up very English. They are English. My wife is very English, and it kind of tapped into my Italian roots living out there. I started doing things and behaving in ways, and people would say to me, "Oh, you're so Italian," and I'd never really acknowledged that before. And it made me realize that I want my kids to remember a little bit and realize that this isn't their roots. So I started watching a lot of Italian movies with them, playing a lot of Italian music in the house. And while I was doing that, I sort of realized, why does nobody make music like this anymore? Why does nobody just have this sort of arms in the air, romantic, life is beautiful sound anymore, this energy? And when I decided that's how I wanted to make a record, I thought instead of going to East London or a studio in South London and trying to imitate it and recreate it, let's go to where they actually made those records. Where did they make all this music? There must have been sort of the equivalent of an Abbey Road.
But you made it in a very strange, you made it in the basement of a church.
But that's where they used to make it. So there's a basement studio in a church in an area of Rome called Parioli, which is sort of the very fancy part of Rome. And there's this beautiful square called Piazza Euclide, and there's this huge church. And the basement of this church was turned into a studio in around 1962 by Ennio Morricone, who did all
Legend,
who did spaghetti westerns, Once Upon a Time in the West, Once Upon a Time in America, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He just did Quentin Tarantino's latest film. And this is a studio that has seen, I think, sort of 12 Oscar nominations. And there's some history in the studio that you just can't recreate elsewhere. And I really wanted to tap into it. The same reason a lot of bands come to Abbey Road, to have a little bit of that magic that was there for the Beatles and all the other amazing legends that have been through there. I wanted to try and see if I could find a little bit of the magic from that generation.
Are you trying to tap into the romance of the old school films as well?
Yes, the cinematic element of this album was very important to me, visually. From the album cover, I really wanted to take back people back to that element. It might be a real sort of European longing I have, but I wanted to remind people of a Europe that might not sort of be there right now, that might not be in the forefront of what people think is to be European or is European culture. And I really wanted to sort of remind myself even of what that is. And it's the Europe I grew up with. It is this romantic, idealistic, post-war, anything is possible. It's freedom and it's love. And that was something that I think now in Europe is not being talked about enough.
And I think you also said in a previous interview that it's not just about a love story though as well. Romance can be found in a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think romance is an atmosphere. It's not necessarily what you say or what you do. It's an energy. And funnily enough, the whole album in that respect, I really approached it like a film because I wanted that element to be continuous but in different formats. So if you do buy the album, I really...
Which you all must, it's unreal.
You're not allowed to leave the building. There's a check-in counter as you leave. But if you do buy it, try if you can, don't shuffle. This is the anti-shuffle album. Please try and listen to it from beginning to the end because there is an actual reason for every song and for where it is.
And talking about the beginning, Candlelight is your first song. It's my favourite as well, by the way. Why did you choose that as your first song, your flagship almost?
Well, for that exact reason. I mean, it sounds a little bit corny and sleazy, but what you do when you're trying to set the atmosphere, you turn the lights down and you light a candle and you create a sort of a space. And Candlelight it's It's a little bit of a cheeky song. It's the song of, it's the encounter. It's the moment you meet. It's that moment you engage. It's a very submissive song. It's when you sort of realize you've come across somebody that you will allow them to do whatever they want to. They can make you smile and they can hurt you, and you're vulnerable to it. And Candlelight is very much that. And I really wanted it as well cinematically. The intro of Candlelight is probably the most cinematic element of the album. It's a real reference and a real tip of the hat to Ennio Morricone and those soundtracks, the use of voice, of choral voices and of strings. And I really wanted it to have that sort of opening scene of a film, you know, the curtains coming open, and suddenly it makes you pay attention. And that's why myself and my entire team, it was the first time we've ever truly agreed on the first single of a song. Because I was like, I really want people to understand we're coming back with something that isn't just a collection of songs. This is an album that should be seen like a film.
And when you say your whole team, did you fly your usual bandmates out, or did you were you like, I need to get some Italian sort of guys in here to really make it feel right?
No, there's only one Italian on board aside from myself, which is Davide Rossi, who was the arranger of the strings. Because that's where I wanted really the Italian element, was the drama and the romance and the musicality, which is quintessentially in the Italian tradition of making music, where melody is, you know, melody run. The language Italian itself is a very melodic language. But when it came to the actual making...
Why is that?
Because it's a strong vowel. It's a language that uses a lot of a-i-o-u, so that in itself...
So try that.
Well, it's why it's very light to sing Italian. It's why opera is quintessentially. You can see how opera was sort of born from that, because it's a very easy language to sing. Also, words... In English, words are very monosyllabic. Hi, I am going to the kitchen. Do you see what I mean? It's very sort of...
We're so basic.
No, which why it works so well with pop music or popular music, why it's so simple. With Italian, it's very different because you have words that have tremendous... I'm trying to think of a word, but terribile. Like you'll have words like that, where it's quite hard to sort of fit. So it has to be melodic. You can't just do it rhythmic based. Anyway, aside from that sort of course in linguistics, what were we talking about? I've completely lost what we were talking about.
But this is actually the first album that you, unless I'm mistaken, haven't played any instruments on as well.
Yeah, that goes back to your previous question, the band. I flew in the band because my band, in my eyes, are the greatest musicians I've ever met. That's not the band, that's me. That's a very excited me with a new guitar that a friend of mine actually handmade for me.
Wow!
Yeah, I actually chose, there's the flag of St. George, which represents, there's a little flag of St. George, you can't really see it, which is my association with my English heritage and my Genovese. Genova, the city I'm from in Italy, also has the flag of St. George as its symbol. And that's my football team's crest, which is a griffin at the top.
Yes!
Yes. But anyway, going back to the music, my band are the greatest musicians I've ever met, and they had to be part of this album. That was something I also insisted on, was I wasn't going to try and bring in anybody else.
As well as the suits, right?
As well as the suits, yeah.
So in sweltering hot conditions of the summer in Rome,
45 degrees.
you guys are rocking suits.
We were working in a very cold basement, so it worked. But more than suits, when I was talking to my band about making this album, I've toured with these guys a long time. And backstage at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when they're sitting back, dressed in their jeans and their t-shirts, calling their wives and their kids, and the person that walks on stage in a suit at 9 o'clock at night are two very different men. They're two different people. One is them, and the other is the performer, the artist. I didn't want them on my record. I wanted the performer, the artist. I wanted who they are when they are musicians, when they're the people that they are on stage. I really wanted to try and capture that on record. And they really embrace that themselves, because I think we sometimes get a bit too comfortable in this game of making music. You know, you find yourself, whether you're doing it in your bedroom or in a studio, you're just kind of going through the motions. You should make an effort. It's a job, it's work. You're trying to put as much heart and soul into this as possible. So I asked the guys to dress for the occasion the same way they would dress as if they were walking onto a stage. And it was amazing. The difference of behavior that we had towards each other in the studio was incredible. Everybody became a gentleman. We were walking around the studio. People were really performing too. Like it's a different, you know, if you put on a nice suit.
I want to do it now.
Yeah, we should really make an effort.
Yeah, I should be presenting in a suit. What am I doing?
Both of us.
Easy.
Next time we'll come totally
100%.
suited up. Yeah.
And the name of the album, Singing Strangers, it wasn't made by you, was it?
That was my daughter. It was something my daughter said. I had just come off this very glamorous tour in Italy where I was playing opera houses, the most beautiful opera houses in the world. And I kind of got home and I was like this high off the ground. I was a little bit too big for my own booth. And my daughter was in her bedroom playing with a friend. And I heard her friend say, "What does your dad do that he keeps coming and going and bringing you these presents?" Because they were playing with something that I had just given her. And my daughter, I was quite curious to see how she would answer. And very casually she just says, "I don't know, he goes around the world singing to strangers." And yeah, that's kind of how I reacted. And I thought I should go in there and correct her, because I felt a little bit defensive, like, I do a little bit more than that. And then as I was walking into the room, I was like, she's absolutely right.
I don't.
That is quintessentially what I do. I go around the world singing to strangers. And that was a real grounding moment. It gave me the central character for this so-called film, this album, which is this dilemma of responsibility and love, which I think everybody shares. In this particular case, it's the performer that has to travel the world and is singing to strangers, trying to make him understand him, asking for their acceptance, asking for their support, not really understanding why he's doing it. And at the same time, all he wants to do is go home to the women he loves, to the children he loves, to the people he loves. And that dilemma, I think, is very much a dilemma that I know most men and women have in everyday life. It's that, should I be at work or should I be at home with the children? And that contrast of responsibility and passion. And so that's what this album is, and basically that's what it's about.
Well, that's very beautifully said, actually. And we actually have an audience question from Jade right now, with the amazing coat.
Hi, Jade.
Hello.
What's up, Jade?
Hello. I wanted to know, when you're songwriting, where do you get your inspiration from? Is it from family life, or is it from the past, personal experience?
I think the majority of it is personal experience. I'd love to say that I try to color it in as much as possible, but I'm not as creative as I like to think I am. I don't have a very good imagination, so but I love observing. So I think it's more observational than creative fantasy. It's very confessional. I find that I'm very good at lying in real life. I'm very good at being dishonest. I think it's very much in my Italian tradition. I would call it lying. I would say manipulating the truth to get what I want.
Embellishing the truth.
Yes, exactly, which is a bit of a Mediterranean tradition, I think, in the past.
You start learning that.
Which might be a little bit creativity. But when I write, and I think this is the beauty of music and why people love music, it's impossible not to be honest. Music brings that out in people. It's the same reason that when you hear something that you love, you can't help but stand up and dance. That is honesty. That's when you sort of lose your inhibition. And it's the same lyrically. It's the one place I'm guaranteed to tell myself the truth. Forget about what I'm telling somebody else. So that's where it comes from. I don't think, it's never a particular, I've never woken up in the morning and said today I'm going to write a song about so-and-so. It kind of, the music opens the gates, and then what comes out is sometimes terrifying and sometimes it's beautiful.
What a question, Jay. We need to swap places.
What an answer.
Brilliant. We've got to talk about Bob Dylan, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
Because he is on your track, co-written.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I wish I had made up a different story for every time somebody asked me this, because it's not as romantic as it could be.
We met on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, we met in a bar in Paris. No, that didn't happen. His management phoned me, or phoned my management in the States, and said, we found a bunch of lyrics that Bob didn't use. And they think around the 90s, they found it in a suitcase in the office, and now they were sort of thinking about what to do with these lyrics. And he had asked them to reach out to various different artists. I did a cover of Bob's 2 albums ago, a song called Except You, which he never released either. And I don't know if that's how this is what tied me to them, but they approached us and they said, would Jack be interested in looking at this? Of course I accepted, but thinking they would never actually send it. 2 days later I get an email with these 2 poems, signed Bob. One of them was really obscure and really vague, and I couldn't really get my head around it. And the other one was as if he had been reading my mail. And I thought, okay, this is amazing.
It was meant to be.
Well, then I had 3 terrible hours where I sat with a guitar and played what sounded like the worst Bob Dylan song I'd ever heard.
And your wife told you to step away,
Yeah,
didn't she?
my wife said, put the guitar down. Everything you're doing sounds like a bad Bob Dylan song. I'm not going to let you be that guy who, goes out and ruins Bob Dylan. She was like, go to the piano and forget that they're his. And I was sitting at the piano just kind of looking at it, and there's a word that says touchy. The song is called Touchy Situation. And the minute I said touchy, I sort of just did that to the piano. I just touched it, literally. and it created this kind of staccato, touchy sound. And I thought, okay, this could be fun. That sort of opened the gates to then turning his words into my own song.
And let's talk about your tour, which I would quite like a ticket to, please, mate. That's okay. You've got Wembley in there.
Yeah, and it's actually Wembley, the arena, because friends of mine keep asking me what pub in Wembley. If you're looking at the arena, where is it? I'm like, no, it's the arena.
The one with the arch, my
The
friend.
one with the arch, yeah, exactly. It's going to be a very emotional night for us.
A lot of dates.
Yeah, I don't even like to look at that. I get
tired.
I get tired just looking at it. There are so many important dates there, but Wembley is really important, not just for myself, for my crew. There's a lot of guys that have been with me for a long time.
It's a milestone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real milestone. We've had many late nights all talking and dreaming about where this is going and why we're all doing this. And as much as I've seen tremendous faith always been given to me, I've seen fear in the eyes of many a men I work with on the road, where they have to question, why are we here? Where is this going? And so to be able to take them onto that stage is my way of saying thank you for sticking with this.
What is life like on the road? I mean, just a normal bloke like me, I can never even imagine it. Do you enjoy it?
It's a love and hate. Those 2 hours on stage are the greatest 2 hours you'll experience in your life. And that happens again and again and again. The other 22 hours of the day are a challenge sometimes. You're far from the people you love. You're away from the people you love. You're sleeping on a bunk bed on a tour bus driving through the cold streets of some motorway in the middle of Germany, and it's not always where you want to be. But
Jeff's left the Lucy up again on the tour bus. Jeff, what are you doing?
It's kind of I'm sure I have a lot of friends actually who are in the army who would completely crack up laughing in my face when I said this, but it's close to a military, like at least a bonding. It's a very bonding experience. You kind of live in each other's pockets. You struggle together, you get homesick together, you celebrate together because you hope that you have some amazing shows. So it's a continuous roller coaster of emotions. It's very tiring, but emotionally it's quite tiring. It's not that physical. I mean, to be fair, as musicians, you're working 2 hours a day, so you can't complain. If you see what the crew does on a tour, those are the guys who deserve the serious awards at the end of a tour, not us. But it's a love and hate relationship. I couldn't live without it. That's the problem. That's what this album's about. How I can't live without going on the road and performing, even though sometimes I'd much rather be at home.
Well, Jack, best of luck with it, and I can't wait to see you in Wembley.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Sadly, that is all we have time for. Jack's album, Singing Strangers, is available on stream now. And to catch Jack on tour, head to his website for all the details. We'll be back on Thursday with Game of Thrones star Aidan Gillen, yes. But for now, give it up once more for Jack Savoretti. What a legend, one more time.